Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Every once in a while you run across a situation where you need to make a little bit of chain, and I don't always want to chop up a pre-existing chain to do it, nor do I want to keep a bunch of different ones on hand. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to make a short chain yourself. There's a few situations. Sometimes you're making a pendant that has chains that attach on two sides of it and you want to build your own chain. I use it for hair kebabs sometimes so you don't lose the little pin that pokes through the rest of it. Or if you just wanted to make your own necklaces, or these could be modified for bracelets as well. So I'm going to show three basic types with lots of variations. That'll be our topic for today. Before we get started though, I wanted to thank all my subscribers. On YouTube here, I just passed 2,900 subscribers and we're heading towards 3,000, which is amazing and wonderful. Thank you guys so much for that. I also wanted to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. I have a new one, and it's Coco Kelly, and I wanted to thank them for signing up. I appreciate your patronage, and I look forward to interacting with you over there on that side. So if you're interested in that, check out the video description. There's links to a number of different things. There's links to my Patreon. There's links to buy me a coffee, my website if you want to see some of my jewelry, and I even have a merch store if you're interested in buying a mug or a notebook with my face on it. So with that being said, let's get started. For today's topic, I think I'm going to be just using 18 gauge round wire. Because it's a mid-sized wire and I can make a chain that's big enough for you to see on the camera, even though normally I probably would make these a little bit smaller than I'm making today. So, but I wanted to show you three basic types, and chop it up my notebook. First one is just flattened ovals, and my mom, for some reason in my head, I think of this as a toilet chain. In old-fashioned toilets, they had a pull chain that you sometimes pulled from the ceiling, and I'm not really old enough to remember those, but my mom used to tell me about it when I was younger, and so I think of those as toilet chains. But that's it's basically just an oval that's flattened out and then continuing down the same oval over and over again. And then after we do that one, I'll show you a variation of that one we can do. So to start with, I'm just going to use, I think I'll use these bail making pliers to make some jump rings. So I'm going to make a whole bunch of these. All right. I'm going to cut these off with my little Zurons. They cut flat on this side, so I'm going to keep flipping them over to get a flat side up against itself. So many different kinds of chains you can do. I don't do them as a rule for just like selling as a chain, but every once in a while you need something that has a chain on it. So I think it might be a little time consuming to make much money on it if you were making them by hand and soldering them all. Alright, so I'm going to close these little jump rings. I'll solder them closed. As always, I'm using hard silver solder and My-T-Flux from Rio Grande. For these, I'm going to use pretty tiny little pieces of solder. So I'm starting out with these as little circles, and then we'll make them into ovals. Kind of actually almost a lozenge shape. It's hard to say that word, lozenge. Just going to use little pieces here. For this step, you wouldn't have to pick them if you don't want to, but I find pick soldering to be one of those things that makes things go a lot faster. Cool these off. Now you could, if you want to, start them out on round nose pliers, but I got these fancy new little bail making pliers that are adjustable. But I'm going to make these kind of into ovals. I'm just putting them over here and then kind of stretching like that. Notice those aren't super symmetrical, so I'm going to go back and try and neaten them up a little bit with my round nose and my just regular chain nose pliers. So in a lot of chains, you can like solder half of them closed and leave half of them open so that you can connect them. But since I was going to shape these before I started connecting them, it made more sense to go ahead and solder them closed, and then some of them I'm going to cut through the solder joint so I can hook them together. It would have been much harder to shape them after they were connected with each other into an oval shape. So, at least I think so. I think the more symmetrical you get these, the happier you'll be at the end. I'm making these a bit bigger than I normally would so you can see them better. But some examples of when you might need a chain, like I was talking about, I make these hair kebabs once in a while, and in order to not lose this pin, one of the things my wife always used to complain about with these kind of hair pieces was you would always lose the pin along the way somewhere. So I started attaching them with a little chain like that, so I had to make a little chain. This one's kind of crude because I made this one a long time ago, but another situation, like I said, when you make a pendant like this that has 2 connection points on it for a chain, sometimes you might want to make a custom-made chain for that kind of thing. Sometimes it's fun to do stuff like that. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to flatten these little guys. Somebody showed me this trick a while back. If you want to keep these things from going bouncing around when you're flattening them. Just tape them down. And they're less likely to get too far. Probably good enough. Now I'm going to cut 2 of these guys. Or should I do 3? I think 2. So let's go over to the saw area. Okay. So I'm just going to cut it right on the solder joint. That was quick. You could spend a little time cleaning these up and getting them a little more symmetrical and everything if you wanted to. I'm not going to for this one. So I'm opening one of these ones I cut up, and I'm going to put 2 of these uncut ones right there. We'll just push it past slightly. I want them not just touching, but kind of pushing together a little bit. And then for me, these ones are super easy because since they're oval, if you hold them like this in the third hand, let me make sure you can see that. Okay. So if you hold them with the solder joint up top here, the previous solder joints are on the side, so you don't run the risk of having any of them solder to the other ring here if you get it a little bit too hot or something. But it does help for this particular kind of ring if you can pick solder. So I turn the torch sideways so I don't heat the bottom rings much anyway. I don't know if I got that soldered well, but generally there's probably enough solder on the solder joint already from if I cut it right on the solder joint with the saw to where you don't really even need to add any more. However, I always add some just to be safe. Nobody wants a wimpy solder joint. Now, I can take the second one here and open it. Then we'll just repeat the process. The only thing about making chains, it's not really very hard to do for the most part. It's just time consuming. At least it is for me. Perhaps somebody's figured out a quicker way than this to do it. I'm sure there are. But if you make chains, what do you do? Put it in the comments how you do it. Always interested to hear how other people do things. It's great because you always learn new stuff. I think I got some hair on the pad. I just smell burning hair. I hope not. My head's not on fire at least. Okay. You can see you basically just get interlocking kind of flattened oval rings, and that's that whole toilet chain look that I remember my mom describing. So, but you can also do other stuff that's cool, like you can change that. If I can get it to lay down nice so you can see it, to where it's got that nice little twist in it, like a kind of like a store-bought chain. And if you want to do that, which you can do, I usually use 2 flat nose pairs of pliers, and I grab it just by the very tips of the links. And it's important that you keep track of which one you're twisting which way, because you want to twist them all in the same direction. So if I pull my right hand towards me like this, I want to push my left hand away from me, twist it, okay, and then on the next one I want to do it in the same direction. Right hand towards me, left hand away from me. And try and grab them in just about the same exact spot. The hardest part, I think, is twisting them exactly the same amount, or pretty close. I may have gone overboard on that last twist there. But let's see how that forms one of those nice kind of chains like that. Okay, so that's a second variation you can do. Let's make a few more. I went ahead and I twisted some more of those rings earlier, and then I also wrapped some around one of these to get you got the diameter of the end of this thing here, and then I wanted some that were a little bit smaller, and this was about the right size, so I grabbed this. And I keep a lot of cylindrical things around my work area because I'm constantly looking for something to make a jump ring around of the various sizes. Okay, so I usually just hold it with a pair of pliers, and then you can start wrapping it around like that. And a lot of people saw these with the saw, but I don't think you need to do that most of the time unless you're doing something really precise. So I'm just going to snip some of these guys off. Some of those, do a few of these. I hope I'm doing this in frame. Do a few more of these here. Oh. I'm not going to change the shape of these ones when I'm solder them. These ones I'm going to stretch out into ovals, so I'm going to solder them all, but some of these I can leave unsoldered to make it easier later on. Solder there, probably. So this one's sitting right on a piece of solder, right where it needs to be. See if I do that, if it flows. And that didn't quite go where it needed to go. If you haven't learned how to pick solder, I'd highly encourage you to pick up that skill. It speeds things up so much. I just remember when I first started doing this, constantly balancing little pieces of solder everywhere. Sort of tedious sometimes. If you want, I'll put a link up there for the pick soldering video I have. Oops, I guess that's all. Just got into the flow and I forgot what I was doing. Sometimes soldering is sort of hypnotic. Strangely, I find filing to be a little bit that way too. I hated filing when I first started doing this, but it started to become sort of soothing for some reason. Okay, so let's shape these other ones just like we did before. I'm going to try them just on the round nose pliers here, just to show you the different. Nothing much different about that. I had a little bit too much solder on that last one there. Let's oval ones over here for a second. Remember, I have some of these that are still open, so I can connect two of these round ones together. Three of them, I should say, like this. This one, if you can, situate any previous solder joints away from the bottom of this. You may not be able to get that precise, but if you guys like this one, we could do kind of a series of these, different kinds of simple chains. Give me an excuse to learn some new ones. I need to replace my squirt bottle. Squirts everywhere but where I want it to squirt, kind of. I'm going to give that one just one more to make sure I got it. Sometimes you get one side hot enough, but the other side isn't quite hot enough. And in that situation, solder jumps to one side or the other. So we're trying to avoid that. Just put that one there. We'll do this other one too. Using my tweezers this time because this thing is probably a little bit on the warm side. And you got to do a little bit of careful heating here so that you don't stick the bottom two rings together, which I very well may have on that one. I did. Well, we'll just have to do a few more. So what happened when I was doing that caused them to solder together was, you may have noticed I'm heating from the side. I think I said that earlier, but that's to keep these other rings on the bottom from getting too hot and keeping the heat above those. And so I probably, and I think I did, if I go back and look at the footage, I bet I turned it this way and focused a little bit too much as I was leaving and got those wires a little bit too hot, because you kind of get them pretty close. So, okay, let's see if I can do this a little less carelessly this time. Let's do one more. Good. With too many mistakes, I'm going to lose. What's the internet equivalent of street cred? Okay, so do I have three? Yeah, there's three of those. All right, so in order to connect these guys, I was going to connect. Thought I would connect 3 in between each of these, like that. So in order to connect all these together, I'm gonna saw a cut on these oval ones here. So be right back. All right, so I did a little cut in each of those. Open this guy up. And this time we haven't flattened this time. Oops, let's put the other one on here too. Some people fuse chains together. I tried to do that, but it's so hard to get consistent fusing of things. You just have to have such a delicate touch with directing the heat. And I'm pretty good at that, but I don't think I have the skill to do that very well with little tiny chains and things. Oops. Oh, that would be a rookie mistake if I didn't flux it. So now we got big oval one, 3 small ones, big oval one, 3 small ones. But wait, it gets better. Let me clean these up just a little bit on the solder joints. And that's probably good enough for now. Okay, so even though we didn't flatten these ones, we can still twist them the same way like we did this other one. So you could leave it like this, and that's kind of cool. But we start from one end, and we'll work our way down it. These smaller ones are going to be a little harder to twist. But, okay. So I'm going left away, right towards me. Left away, right towards me. Left away, right towards me. I keep saying that so I don't forget it. Here's an even more fun part. Because you could do all different combinations here. You could do, like 2 oval ones, and then 5 small ones, and then 1 oval one, and then 3 small ones, and then 2 oval ones, and then 5. You could do all sorts of interesting patterns like that. And I think that makes for a lot of cool variations. You could also flatten them before you did this, like I did on some of those. But either way, it makes for a nice little chain if you need to make one of those. Like I said, in a situation, you have to connect things together in a short length. If you need to do a connection on 2-point connection on a pendant or something like that. By the way, I made this for a video. If you want to see that video, I'll put a link up there for you. So, okay, so that was the 3 different types of chains. You have the kind of toilet chain, which is just the flattened ovals, and then to make the second one, which was the twisted ovals, it's basically the same one. You just do a twist on each one. And then the third one was doing the 3 circles oval, which has infinite variations you could do, which is kind of cool. So that's just 3 basic ones. Look forward in the future to some other videos where I show you a few different ones, I hope. I kind of like trying out new chains. I like making different unique links for bracelets and stuff like that. It's kind of fun to do that stuff, try and make something that nobody's ever made before. So, well, I'll polish these up. Oh, incidentally, polishing chains is scary and dangerous on a polishing wheel, so unless you've had a lot of experience with polishing and you know some of the safety tricks to use in order to polish things like that, I would say don't. I would say pickle it really well and maybe tumble polish it, at least until you know some of the dangers of doing chains on wheels. And maybe sometime I'll talk about that in the video, but if it gets wrapped around the wheel, you can lose a finger and stuff like that. So just be aware of that, and you know, don't do that until you know what you're doing. Right, well, that was the 3 different chains that you can make pretty easily video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button on the way out. I appreciate it. That helps me a lot. You might consider watching a few other videos. I have a lot of content here. I think this might be video 150, which is pretty unreal to me. But there's lots to choose from, lots of stuff for beginners. There's also stuff for more advanced people who are just looking for ideas. But peruse some of those videos. There's lots of good content there. And then maybe consider subscribing. So, like I said earlier, check out the description for different links to places like Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee or my website. But yeah, thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing. Take care.